Hola Vikings, bienvenidos. My name is Paula from Destination Puerto Rico, and today I'm going to take you on a tour through the capital city of San Juan. First things first, café con leche and a pastry, a cheese pastry known as a quesito. We got to start our day right, so come along with me. We grabbed our café con leche and quesito to go from Café con C, here on La Calle Loíza in Santurce. Santurce is a neighborhood of San Juan known for its art murals. Local artists came together as a community, and their work can be seen up and down the streets from Calle Loíza to Calle Cera and Miramar. The Madme Museum, or Museo de Arte y Diseño de Miramar, is also located in this area of San Juan and is a staple for the locals of Santurce. Its exhibits focus primarily on decorative arts, designs, and plastics. You will often find us locals outdoors. The benefits of living on an island is definitely the sunshine. Whether it's paddling, kayaking, bike riding, or just walking, we're certainly enjoying nature, especially the beach. Most of us have a beach chair in our car at all times, just in case we need to escape for just a little bit. The actual area of San Juan. We locals love to come here to get a bite to eat, get a couple of cocktails, a couple of drinks, have a day with the family, and definitely enjoy the beach. The beach is something that us locals try to do at least once a week. So as you can see, I'm working up an appetite. So let's see where else we can go throughout San Juan. San Juan, Puerto Rico. So welcome. We're actually at the pier. This is where all the boats will be coming soon, and we'll be able to welcome you with open arms. The pier and the port is actually right down there. So why don't you come with me and we'll see what Old San Juan has to offer. Here at Paseo de la Princesa, a promenade or boardwalk here in Old San Juan is a definite must visit when in the Old City. This promenade is not only picturesque, but it's a wonderful place to walk with friends and family and enjoy nature a little bit. The entire walkway is lined with trees, and you can even see the San Juan Bay on the other side towards the end of the promenade. One of my most favorite spots in all of Old San Juan is Paseo de la Princesa. This beautiful promenade is not only picturesque, it is a wonderful place to come with family and friends and spend the day or even the evening. The entire walkway is lined with beautiful trees, and on the other side there's a fountain and stunning views of the San Juan Bay. It's a beloved place for locals, and we hope that you love it too when visiting Puerto Rico. A little later, we're going to be joined by Moira. Moira is a certified tour guide with us at Destination Puerto Rico, and she has a vast knowledge not only on the island, but also on Old San Juan, its historical significance, all the facts and stories that make up our amazing old city. And she's going to give you a tour later on in the day. For lunch, we decided to stop at Café Manolín here on La Calle San Justo in Old San Juan. It's a popular cafe and diner that has been around for over 70 years, so locals love it and know it very well. Serving up local classics and comida criolla, it's a wonderful place to eat some delicious food if you're ever in El Viejo San Juan. Anytime us locals are in Old San Juan and we come to El Morro, we usually relax on the lawn. There are always people flying kites, kids playing, and dogs running around, so it's such a great time to spend with nature and people watch, and even just take in the sights of the historic fort. I'm sure some of you have visited El Morro before, but have you been to the secret trail behind it? Come with me. Nestled between the walls of the fort and the beautiful waters of the Atlantic Ocean is this secret walking trail. Many locals, and even a few savvy visitors who know of it, come walk or hike this trail, even mountain bike, in the early morning and late evenings. It provides stunning views and even gives you an up-close and personal view of the old San Juan Cemetery. Now, we love to wind down after a long day with family, friends, music, food, and of course a few cocktails. So I'm gonna head to La Factoria, a world-renowned bar here in Old San Juan. Moira's waiting for you guys to take a tour through the old city, a historical one at that, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Welcome to the marvelous city of Old San Juan. This is the capital of Puerto Rico. We are in the Caribbean. We are the tiniest of the Great Antilles. And I am so happy that you're here with us today. As we see the city, we are looking at this marvelous Atlantic Ocean water, which is nurturing the Bay of San Juan, where you just dock in if you did come throughout on a cruise to our country. And we are very soon looking at this cemetery, which was built back in 1843, Cementerio Maria Magdalena de Pacis, or Pacis Cemetery, as we fondly just shorten and call it. It was the first cemetery to be constructed outside of the city walls. Why? Because population was growing, and for health and sanitary reasons, they had to establish a cemetery not just in back of any church, as it was the custom, but outside of the immediate environment and area in which people were residing in the city. Okay, so then if we walk a bit to the left, we are looking at this marvelous fortification, Castillo San Felipe del Morro, or El Morro Fort. San Philip II, the king of Spain at the moment, he was the one that ordered the fort to be constructed at the mouth of the Bay of San Juan. Why? Because it made very much sense for the fort to be constructed at this spot, since you can see the Atlantic Ocean, and smoothly as any vessel starts gliding into the mouth of San Juan, you see it to the left of the fortification. So then we have the fortification that took 250 years into the making. So 25 generations all in all. And what we're immediately looking at is the 5th level of the fort. When you visit the fortification, you would have to walk down to the other 4 levels. And when we see the lighthouse, that is the 6th level. And we have 15 lighthouses in Puerto Rico, and all of them were constructed on behalf of the Spanish crown during the 19th century, from 1842 throughout 1872. Nowadays, they are maintained and kept in good condition by the Coast Guard belonging to the United States of America. And this lighthouse will be beaming out to any vessel that is making their journey into the Bay of San Juan. And you see that everything is very open. No trees are planted here. You know why? Because if they had planted trees, the enemy would have been able to conceal themselves behind the tree trunks. So they decided very savvily, we are not planting trees. That way we have an open area that we can see if anyone is trying to approach and come into the fort. Then when we look to the other side of the bay, there is another tiny fort called San Juan of the Cross fortification. 80 soldiers were staying there all the time, and they were playing a very important key role in the control of the entry into the bay on behalf of any enemy. Why? Because The soldiers, 200 of them stationed at El Morro fortification and 80 stationed at San John of the Cross fort. They were just coming over and they were cross-firing to help out in controlling those enemy vessels from further coming inland, okay? So they had many techniques and it was very amazing how they achieved this. The tiny fort was actually nowadays, when you see that it's a strip of land called the islet of Goats Island. Why? Because it was cows and goats that were kept in that area. It was the people that have leprosy that were kept outside of the major population in the islet of Old San Juan where we are walking by. And nowadays it's a natural reserve run by the local government of Puerto Rico, okay? So then we're walking closer to the main entry of San Felipe del Morro Fort, or Morro as we just shorten it, call it. And you can see this is where I'm standing. This is where the security guards were, or the soldiers back then, were keeping post in 12-hour shift, okay? So what happens, they only had a torch to light them up in dark pitch dark nights, and they were just having that vent and they were alone. So there are 75 sentry boxes within the wall formation, which comprises 3.5-mile radius in the city of Old San Juan. What happens then? You can see the bridge. The bridge is now made in concrete. This was refurbished by National Park Service system, but it used to be a drawbridge, like in a feudal castle in medieval Europe, okay? If the enemy was approaching, they were able to just lift the bridge and the enemy would be falling into what we call the dry moat. At the dry moat, all the sentinels, all the soldiers keeping post in the openings, or the troneras, as we call it, of the fortification, they were able to kill them on the spot and they wouldn't be able to go any further and counterattack or even seize the fortification. So very amazing that they decided to make this. And Morro actually means a promontory rock coming from the ocean, and Old San Juan, it's an little islet, and all the edification was made on this promontory rock. So we are on a higher level, 140, 147 feet above ocean level, basically. And that gave the opportunity for them to defend the city much better, okay? So now we are here. When we walk later through the streets of the city, we will encounter this amazing figure of Ricardo Alegría. And Ricardo Alegría, back in 1955, was the person that decided to create the Institute of Culture of Puerto Rico. Why? To promote the awareness and to control how people perceive our culture. We are a huge mix, ladies and gentlemen. We are having that the indigenous persons that were here in Puerto Rico when we were first encountered by Europeans, it was the Taino Indians. But throughout archaeological diggings that this founder of the Institute of Culture, Mr. Alegría, we know for sure that 4,500 years ago, people were settling in our country, leading a semi-nomadic life, depending on what they were able to be harvesting and walking throughout the riverbanks. There are 22 rivers in our country. We have plenty of fresh water, and they were just establishing their settlements by the riverbanks because you know that water is the number one necessity for humankind. So then we go further down and we encounter Bayaha Quarter. Bayaha Quarter was built in mid-19th century, and this was for the soldiers to have their sleeping quarters. Nowadays, we have the Museum of the Americas on the second level, which is very interesting. We have a coffee house on the ground level, which is in the biggest interior courtyard of any construction in the city. We have a Spanish restaurant, and it's very much used. So come over into Bayaha and enjoy what it has to offer. Then we start walking down, and we can see St. Joseph Church. St. Joseph's Church, back in 1532, was the first church to be built in the city. And believe it or not, it has just been reopened to the public. It took 20 years for us to see it again. For the past 20 years, it was closed for restorations. A lot of money went into this restoration. Why? Because when they began restoring it, they found frescoes that were not known to be in existence. So to bring frescoes to life, you need historians, you need fresco masters, you need very nice artists to be able to achieve what they accomplish. And this is what we see now when we go into St. Joseph Church, okay? Then we see the priest house, which is now a high education center for our children trying to strive for master's or doctorate degree in archaeology, anthropology, and Caribbean history. Then we encounter the yellow building at the corner. It used to be a convent up to 1903. So in 1903, what happened then? That stopped being a convent. It was the Carmelite nuns that had established this order here in 1651. And Miss Laszlo, the founder of the Carmelite convent, is buried right at the main space in the what used to be the chapel for the nuns, where the priest used to stand to give them mass, and she's buried right there. You know what that area of the chapel is nowadays? A venue place, guys. But it's a beautiful building. Its interior courtyard has been pristinely preserved, and it's a blessing that we still have this construction. And across from the convent hotel, nowadays, I should say that you can stay there if you want to a couple of nights when you're done with your cruise. We have the Cathedral of San Juan. The Cathedral of San Juan, the main entryway, will lead you into the gates of San Juan that are a set of doorways of the 5 that used to be within the wall system. These are the only that are still standing, the gates of San Juan. What do we have in the main entryway of the cathedral? We formally can see the beautiful ceiling with the frescoes that were painted by Mr. Soto back in 1850. And Mr. Soto very painstakingly had to go into nature and look and extract pigments from berries, from seeds, from the petal flowers, and then to achieve all the color scheme in the paintings that he wanted. Then he had to figure, what will I be painting on this ceiling? Then he had to go and draw everything and sketch it out. Then on a high scaffold, when the masonry guys were finished to putting all the plaster in the ceiling, he would be quickly going and just laying down with face up towards the ceiling. He would be painting all those frescoes. This is why fresco masters at the 16th Chapel, Michelangelo Buonarroti, as most of you probably have been to, you know that this is an amazing thing to see frescoes. Then we go into the main cathedral, and you can see the emblematic grid pattern on the flooring. Black and white checkered pattern floor comes from a marble from quarries that we used to have here, and some of the marble was brought from Italy and from Spain as well. Remember that it wasn't until later 19th century, at least in our country, that most people were illiterate. So by not knowing how to read or write, it was easy for the clergy to keep a hold on their minds. So why were churches, and you coming from Europe, those of you that have been in Europe or live in Europe, you know that this is a very high ceiling, but you have cathedrals that are having even higher cathedrals. The entryway, not in the Cathedral of San Juan, but in other countries, had almost devilish figures as they were walking through. Why? That was on purpose, to instill certain fear onto the persons, the parishioners coming over. Then they were sitting and they were looking at this high ceiling. Why was the purpose of having a high ceiling? To have light coming and beaming onto them. So as the clergy was reading the scriptures, they would be having this sense, okay, Almighty is upon me. I should obey what he's saying. So it was a way of controlling the masses, okay? Look at the beautiful altar, completely done in marble. The mahogany pews for the bishops. And look at the dome, which is a master of the tremblay, or a trick to your eye. It seems like we could actually go and pace on the balcony. It seems that the light, the sunlight is shining and beaming through into the dome, but it's only all these dimensions that were created by Mr. Soto with very simple colors. And then we have the 4 medallions of the 4 evangelists of the New Testament, of course, the suspended crucifix of Jesus the Christ. And this is where still in use every single day. Mass is being held here for more than 400 years, guys, okay? 1540, they began this construction. Of course, it was much smaller at the beginning, and it kept evolving and being constructed. Then we have a lateral chapel, which is the Madonna of Providence, and she's having a Puerto Rican flag. And you would say, hey, on church is there the country's flag? Because she's our protector. She has been proclaimed the patron lady of the Puerto Rican family. So that's why Vatican City has allowed Puerto Rican flag to be right by her, okay? It's a beautiful polychromatic chapel. The columns that you see are gold leaf made of wood. It's not metal or anything, it's wood that was made like this, and then with the gold leaf encrusted. And the Madonna per se has a beautiful blue color. And this is the original flag of Puerto Rico. That navy blue that we did see previously on the flag at the Morro fortification has come to be in the 20th century to conform, since we're part of the United States, so that it looks a little bit like the color of the navy blue of the United States of America. But it used to be sky blue, what we had in our flag, okay? And then here we see the coat of arms of Puerto Rico, which is within this chapel as well. And the coat of arms was given to us, making Puerto Rico the country with the earliest own coat of arms in the Americas. And when I say the Americas, that means North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean, okay? So the lamb, representing Jesus the Christ, is sitting on top of the Holy Bible. And then in Latin, what this means is John is my name. John is one, hence San Juan or Santo, okay? And then we have the coats of arms of the King and Queen of Spain, Fernando de Aragon, and Isabella, with the lion, and the towers representing their own kingdoms, okay, when they, before they got married. Remember, as we're walking, we are pointing to you very special buildings and properties that have been very important in our history, but lateral streets are having all these people that actually live within the city. And look at the architectural details that they have. The color scheme was, remember Mr. Ricardo Leguía, the founder of the Institute of Culture. So mid-1950s, he and the mayor of the city, Miss Doña Fela, they decided to put this color scheme to make it a more vibrant and pleasing and appealing to our eyes, to our eyesight of the city. So now they have all this color scheme in which every house has a different color. But if you look at the doorways like this one, it is amazing. Completely done of Puerto Rican mahogany, and you can see the knocker. It is just so cool to just go through and start looking at the different knockers, because they all are different and they are really cool. This is another feature of colonial architecture, guys. You can see this tiny opening into the doorway. It was for protection and for light and air to flow through the premise of the house. The ceilings are really high, and don't be fooled by a doorway, because once you pass this doorway, it is a humongous property inside, usually 2 or 3 levels. And then we have all the ornamentation on the exterior facade as well. Hello, here we are, this amazing spot in which what I was talking to you about, the Wash of the Bay, we can see from a different perspective right here. And you can see more of the wall system within the city that comprises 3.5-mile radius, okay? We can see more sentry boxes where the sentinels were keeping post in 12-hour shifts. And then, remember when we were right there at the Castillo? We can see this White House, that we call it the White House, La Casa Blanca, and it was the first residence to be built within the city, because this was the first governor's residence. He actually didn't get to see it completely because he passed on before it had been fully built. But his family and his successors kept living in it for 250 years. Now it's been turned into a museum run by the local municipality government of San Juan. And then we are in this amazing strollway, which is the Princess Promenade. We will see the beginning of the Princess Promenade, or the other end, I should say, later on. And mid 19th century, 1854, they began building this promenade outside of the wall system. Remember, the city was very much protected, so every citizen was living behind the walls. They was very much confined to that space. But mid 19th century decided, okay, let's make this promenade. And for the first time, every social class was able to mingle one by the other because it would be the servants, the freed slaves that were soon to be freed, um, the aristocrats, because if remember back then there were no middle classes. It was only the rich persons or the poor persons and the slaves, okay? And they were showing all throughout the promenade, receiving this beautiful breeze that we're receiving right now, that you will enjoy fully because as you're walking, you get overheated. And when you see this breeze from the bay, which is measured by water from the Atlantic Ocean, you are just so grateful. And we're receiving this blessing of this shade of this ficus or banyan tree, as some of you know it, which has been able to survive the times. You all know that we're in a tropical region zone, so we are bound to get hurricanes from time to time. And this one, almost 4 years ago, was almost lost. But it had crutches, believe it or not, crutches, um, yarns, pieces of clothing just to hold it in place. And now he's trying to master the art of growing and giving us shade once more. Then we are feeling all these risks. And it is a cooperative of fishermen that actually use this bay water and they go out and they go deep sea fishing to for population to receive these goods that they sell elsewhere in the city during the day, okay? Then we're looking at the benches that most of you, when you're walking through here, okay, I can sit here, I can sit on this ledge, I can sit on that bench. Okay, let me wave you goodbye because I don't want to walk anymore. But then you will be so enchanted by what is behind the walls that you will want to keep on walking with me a little bit more. So what happens here? We have the gates of San Juan. Remember, it was a gated city. So that means that there were formal entryways. And this was the one, as I mentioned at the Castillo, that was used by VIPs, noblemen, clergy, and aristocrats. So we have that we go back into the city now. We finish making a walk through the Princess Promenade that is very much used by joggers early in the morning and like after 5 p.m. after working hours. It is used by whole Puerto Rican families over the weekends. They come over with the children because you can keep on strolling and they can be kind of free, feeling free before you, but you can keeping an eye on them. But in the colonial time, it was the formal greeting spot, and there was a clergyman right here, and he would be anointing everyone going through all the threshold of the gates of San Juan with holy water. We have a Latin inscription, which means, blessed are those that come in the name of the Lord. So we are going through, and as we walk through, keep in mind this is the width of the wall on this end. Okay? Look how it is. And so can go through here. When I was younger, young girl, this was used by cars. And we would be exiting the city through here and make a turn. And instead of walkers or persons just walking by, it would be cars going through the Princess Promenade. Okay? It has the best acoustic ever. So if you like to sing, try to make a tune here, record it, and you won't believe. Forget about bowls or anything of those pieces of equipment. It has the best acoustic ever does. And then we come into
cobblestone. Makes an amazing photograph. All this bluish gray color that we're looking that is paving our streets. It is amazing. They were laid in mid 18th century, and it was the street right in front of the cathedral that was first being paved with the cobblestones.
And let's go in this building. As population was growing, instead of having residents of 2 or 3 levels, they were turning the ground level into lateral apartments. And every family residing on these lateral apartments would be sharing an interior courtyard at the very end of these constructions. Nowadays, we have that on the ground level, what do we have? Shops and different kind of businesses. And then these interior courtyards have been turned, a lot of them, into restaurants. Okay, very beautiful after 6 p.m. to enjoy this. Then we keep on promenading throughout Cristo Street, and we are at the end of Cristo Street. We can see the tiny chapel of Christ of Miracles at the very end, which was erected back in 1753 after accident had happened. You know what happened? Right here at the very end, right in front of Cristo Street, Chapel, they used to hold horse races on Cristo Street. So they would have this spot as the turnaround, and they would be going up all the way to San Joseph Church, close to Valleja Quarter, across El Morro fortification. And one of the horses at that moment fell back and passed on. The horse died immediately. The rider survived for a few months, but eventually he passed on as well. So they decided, we want to continue with the races. So what are we going to be doing? We are erecting a chapel, and with God's will, we will be deterring any more accidents from happening. And hence, we have that now at the very end of Cristo Street. We have the tiny chapel of Christ of Miracles. It has become a pilgrimage site. And on this pilgrimage site, people that have a mild impairment, they can bring some offerings. 2 popes have formally visited. If you make a special request, you can be mild at the Cristo Chapel. And between the corner of Fortaleza Street, where the governor's mansion is, and Cristo Chapel, you have all these ground level businesses that turn into open cafes and restaurants.
Okay, here we are at Bastión de las Palmas Square. There are 17 squares within the city. It's a tiny city, but 17 squares. Remember, you will be so happy that we have all those squares, because every time you walk a little bit, then you can take a break at any of these squares within the under the shade of these trees. And then you can make wonderful photographs, because we're on a higher level right here. So you can see all the bay. And if we look to the further left-hand side, you can see that bluish trim on the edge of the white building. That is pier number 1, guys. And this is where Viking cruise line do dock in for 2 days. So you are very close to your cruise to making some shopping in the area, and to walk by and take amazing photographs at sunset from the spot as well. Okay, so remember when we were at the gates of San Juan, this is the other end of the Princess Promenade. I did mention to you that we were going to the other end. So this could be the end or the beginning, depending on which angle you start walking throughout it, okay? And here we are closer to the dock line. So this is where all the docks for cruises and passengers are. Cargo docks are on the other side of the bay, okay? So what happens here is that you will be anchoring right at dock number 1, which is on the diagonal from your 2-minute walk, and you're immediately on the Princess Promenade. It is amazing to walk through here. Since I mentioned when it was first being used and built, it was for people to come out of the seclusion of the interior of the city within the wall system, okay? Where we see these steps, guys, they used to be like towers. And when we see the building on the other end, there was another tower with the gates on this end closing at 6 p.m. so that the enemy approaching, remember, or the European countries wanted to take this and make it their own, so they would be sheltering the citizens by enclosing them within the wall system. There were 5 main entryways that would be closed by 6. Once more, on mid 19th century, pardon me, they decided, okay, we are just tearing this down and we are making a freer society. And that's when people mingle over here. That's what we still do today. As you can see, families just stroll throughout. And on Saturdays and Sundays, it's an amazing place to buy things from the artisans that they craft right here. Food vendors, so you can try tidbits of to eat, or just do a little bit of exercise. Since you will be here for a couple of days, you can walk throughout the promenade. Being a hilly city gives you the option of walking on a flat surface, okay, without getting too tired and enjoying fresh air at the same time. And if you have children or grandchildren or even your significant other, it is really hard to outbid this present because the Princess Promenade was a present from the king to his daughter on her 5th birthday. Can you imagine a child with 5 years having something named after her far out from her own hometown back in Spain? So this is it. So I don't think we can have a grander gift than this. So no competition on that behalf, okay? They will have to settle with whatever we give our kids and grandkids, guys. So here we are at Columbus Square. It is like the main square for you to meet persons. So if you are a family of 4 or 6 and everyone wants to go their own way, you will say, okay, at 2, we shall meet at Columbus Square. And why? Because we can see Mr. Christopher Columbus sculpture right here, and he's looking towards the harbor front, which is that way, greeting everyone coming into the city. It is usually over the weekends that we have artisans laying the booth right here as well. And from here, you're able to get taxi cabs because they will be on the premises on the lateral side on the other street at any given time. So it's very easy to get a taxi cab from here. There's always a police officer at the corner for you to get instructions if you need any as well, okay? The yellow building in front of us, it is the first state theater within the country of Puerto Rico. Alejandro Tapi Rivera carries the name of this gentleman that was a very important, significant figure in the 19th century. And he was a writer, so the decor inside is gorgeous, the chandeliers, and it has been a state theater since 1832. And here we are holding state theater that for the time being, everything has been put to a hold, but pretty soon our artists will be able to perform once more, okay? And then from here, we have 2 main streets, okay? If you are right looking at the sculpture of Columbus, the street that is right in front of us, to the right, it is Fortaleza Street. Remember where we did see the kites, the pinkish kites with the governor's mansion? It begins right here at Columbus Square, and it's 7 blocks up of shops and restaurants that you can enjoy fully, leading you into the governor's mansion. So it begins right here and ends at the governor's mansion, La Fortaleza. To the left, we have San Francis, or calle San Francisco. San Francis Street goes from San Christopher Fortification all the way to City Hall on the other end. At City Hall Square, you have places to eat, and all throughout 7 blocks as well of shopping for you to do. If you keep walking past City Hall, you will encounter the Provincial Hotel nowadays that used to be the provincial place within colonial times that was before City Hall. Then in the United States, when the US came over, guys, in 1898, that we fully came to be part of the US after the Spanish-American War, they made that building the first high school within Puerto Rico. Then it was a jail, and now it's the Provincial Hotel by City Hall. So if you keep walking on San Francis Street, go to City Hall Square, you will see shops all throughout and restaurants as well. Then walk past City Hall, and you will see at the other corner, Provincial Hotel. Get to the next corner. When you make a slight right turn, you will be on Cristo where the cathedral is and all the other shops as well, okay? So very easy layout. There's no way of getting lost in space within the city. Very, very easy. And then we walk over and we can see that once more on the lower level, there are certain businesses and coffee shops and restaurants, apartments on the second and other levels of the structures, and we can fully see from here the other fortification. We were at El Morro fort early on, and here we have the second fort that was built within the country, and this is San Cristobal or San Christopher. San Christopher was ended both El Morro fortification, San Felipe of El Morro, and San Cristobal were both ended at the same time. So all in all, remember I mentioned that El Morro took 250 years into the making. This took only 149, okay? And it is very important because if you get to visit on your own, if you decide to go to the tour, you go to the upper level where the flags are, and you have a 360-degree view of the whole city of San Juan, because you're able to see from up there the whole colonial city, the capital city, and what is now on the outskirts of the heart of old San Juan, the new San Juan as we call it, that evolved in early 20th century and into the 21st nowadays, okay? Then it's the old casino, Antiguo, that means old or ancient. The Antiguo casino, early 20th century, 1917, they inaugurated this for important affairs, okay? And it was not for gambling, not a casino as we have in our mind, like in Vegas or other places or any other hotel or Monaco. We are not gambling ever here. It was just a place where gentlemen would come after dinner and enjoy informal conversations to get to know what was going out there in the world, okay? They would be having a smoke, having a drink, playing cards, but mainly it was a place for them to mingle and see what was going on. So it was like making, remember there was no newscasters on TV back then. So they needed to make a sense of what was going on in the world, but whatever pieces of info, all of them had gotten from family letters that lived elsewhere, okay? And it was super awesome. That's what they did. And that's why they came here. Nowadays, it is a very important place for very private, important venues, or for the governor of Puerto Rico to meet with dignitaries coming from other countries, and then they meet right here, and then they go formally into the governor's mansion for dinner or any other important affair, okay? So this is how it is, and very beautiful. A lot of films have been used this building, both inside and the exterior as well. If you look up, it has a copper rooftop that you can fully appreciate it from San Cristobal fortification. Helicopters can land right there, okay? So we go to the corner of Colombo Square and Fortaleza Street, remember, for the shopping ending at the governor's mansion. And we have a milestone here at the corner, guys. Come and see this, check this out. This is kilometer 0. This is where every road started merging off in our country. So remember I did mention that we are composed in our genealogy of 3 main races, but then we have this thing that our road system is in kilometers and kilometers, but our miles are what the odometer of our car have, and the speed limit are the signs that we will see as we drive through. So it's a conversion of both systems that only us can understand. We are not changing it into miles or kilometers into whatever. No, we just abide kilometer 0 and kilometer 2 running at 15 miles per hour. Okay, we have English and Spanish as both official languages of the state. And if you ask locals, they have a third language. You know which it is? Spanglish, abiding no grammar rules. But only us can understand it, and we're happy and content with it, okay? So let's go. So welcome to the farmers market of Santurce. Santurce is a neighborhood within the capital city of San Juan. very close to Old San Juan, 10-minute drive from the harbor area. And the farmers market is so funny because you think, okay, I have to go and do some shopping for me to be able to fix a meal for my family. No, it's more a social place than a farmers market. People love coming to an area like this just to mingle and get acquainted with friends and family members. So we can see this amazing sculpture of avocados, which was first encountered in Mexico, and everyone loves avocados, right? Very nourishing, very healthy fat that it has nowadays, nutritional speaking. And when we look at the farmers market architecture, it is beautiful because the Plaza del Mercado that you can see right at the medallion, right in the center of the building, Plaza Mercado, farmers market, okay? Mercado means market and Plaza, the farmers market. So what do we have? That the awnings are made of tin roof, and all the construction is in cement. And then you can see on the lateral side, people they constructed benches for people. The pergola on the other end is used for people to take shelter and engage in conversation, maybe have a tidbit to eat. All around the farmers market, on the four sides of it, we have different restaurants and bars. Becomes very alive after the farmers market closes. All the establishments become very alive in the evening. So it's a very popular place for visitors and citizens of our country just as well, okay? So we go in. Part of traveling, ladies and gentlemen, is getting acquainted with locals, have a small conversation with people around to see how they feel or the way they think, and that gives you and enriches you in your journey throughout the world, okay? Plus gastronomy, of course, going and eating at a local cafeteria, enjoying, for example, amazing coffee. But when you come over, maybe things that you have read or heard about or thought about tasting but have not been able to, when you come over, you can do so. And this is a plantain. And we either eat green plantains or red plantains. What is the red plantain? The starch in the green plantain has turned into sugar, making it sweeter. This is softer, quickly cooked. The green plantain, it takes a longer time to process and cook. It can be either boiled or fried, and we make mofongo. Our traditional signature dish of Puerto Rico is mofongo. It's an African word that means to match with force, and we just peel the plantain, we cut the ends, we make a lengthwise slit, and we uncurl the skin, and you have the produce inside. You cut it like in 5 pieces, fried on medium-high heat, turning its sides like midway through, like at 3.5 minutes, you turn it, and then it is fully cooked. Then you take a mortar, big mortar, you start grinding some garlic, and then you put the fried plantain pieces and you mash it down, okay? That's what mofongo is. You can add a little bit of olive oil or melted butter to make it softer in consistency. Then you get a bowl and you kind of cover the sides of the bowl with the mashed plantain. Inside in the center, it can be filled with anything cooked in a Creole sauce. It could be skirt meat, chicken, fish, shrimp, lobster, anything to your liking. If you're a vegan like myself, you just make it of plain veggies like broccoli, cauliflower, pimentos, onions, cilantro, and it makes a very amazing concoction. What is Creole sauce? The basis of the Creole sauce is tomatoes. Remember, tomatoes were first encountered in Mexico, just like the avocados that we did see the sculpture outside, and they were taken into Europe, and funny enough, they create all these sauces, and then it comes the rage, and we are using something that was produced from the Western Hemisphere, concocted in the way that they created, and we love Creole sauce because it imparts flavorful, amazing meals to anything that you cook in them. Almost fat-free, very low in carbs, so it's excellent to eat like that, and it imparts a lot of, turns anything very flavorful, okay? What do we have here? Remember, I mentioned that our native and indigenous persons were growing pineapples. This is the pineapple. If you pull a leaf of the pineapple, that means it's ripe. So this one is not ripe yet. Doesn't mean that you cannot buy it. You can buy it, and you will leave it on your shelf for 2 or 3 days and will start ripening, okay? And the scent that it will come from the pineapple will tell you that it's ready to be peeled. How do you peel this? Very sharp knife. You cut the crown off, a new plant will grow from this crown, guys, okay? And then you cut all the pieces of the skin, and you see that it has like a diamond effect. Right in the center, we call this the eyes of the pineapple. The eyes of the pineapple, once you have peeled them, they are still kind of embedded in the pineapple skin, flesh inside. So you will take a very, very pointed paring knife and take every tiny eye of the pineapple. Then you slice it. You take the center core. You can use that for smoothies because it's very hard to eat and chew on it. Very loaded with fiber. But then you eat your pineapple slices. Natural antibiotic, guys. You eat pineapples or papayas, you will be cured and be preventing a lot of things from the system. So we have here ginger. For those that have not seen ginger before, this is a rice and probably if you go to any farmer's market or the grocery store, and you know that this is used a lot in Asian cooking, but it imparts flavor for any seafood. And we have a bounty from the ocean here, so this is very much. And ginger, if you're having a cough or a cold, excellent for that as well, okay? Then we have the avocado. And these avocados, if you're coming from the US, probably you're used to seeing avocados that are rather tiny and the skin is rather darker. And then when you cut them, they are very kind of light lime green color. These are more like butter color, okay? More yellowish. The skin is very thin. You can see how big they are. And you know when avocado is ready to be eaten, when you move it, the seed, the pit inside will sound. This is not ripe yet either. So in a couple of days, it will. So you just get it, and you can make amazing things with avocado, okay? Then we have mangoes. This was brought from Africa with the slave trade. But mangoes are loaded with vitamin A, vitamin C, with fiber, niacin. Very good to eat them. Don't eat more than one because it's very filling. And we have 100 varieties of mangoes, and all can be grown in a country. We have an agreement with the Dutch embassy in which we grow one kind of mango that gets to weigh 2 whole pounds or slightly under a kilo, and they are exported into the common market in Holland. From there, other European countries buy from it, okay? And they are amazingly good. So here we have the beets that you all know, the pumpkin, which is a squash. You can see it from the seeds, just like a cucumber, which is another squash, just like zucchini or yellow squash. All this. Can you see how orangey that is? That means it's loaded with beta carotene, which is what we need to give our bloodstream, our skin a beautiful color, to fend any blemishes and infections. What happens to this? That it traps free radicals in our bloodstream that are the culprits of maybe cancer cells of developing. So eating calabaza or squash is amazing. You know what happens? We tend to use this for everything. We cook our beans with this, our soups, our stews, we put squash. Or you can just sliver it and then slightly boil it for 3 to 5 minutes and then just drizzle it with some olive oil to your liking, okay? And the orange color tells you how healthy it is, okay? Then we have cassava. I did mention that our indigenous persons were growing, just like the pineapples, the cassava, which is a root vegetable. Remember what I mentioned, to grow in a sandy soil because it's easy to pull this out and harvest it. How do you do? Just like the plantain, cut the ends off, make a lengthwise slit, uncoil it, then you cut it like in 3 pieces. You parboil this for about half an hour. and then it's ready to be mashed or eaten just like that with a sauce that you can make a Creole sauce for the yuca or cassava, or you can make sauté onion and drizzle over it. It's amazingly good with fish. Fish being a light protein and this being a high starch carb will make you feel full without having lots of calories. Okay, so very good clean thing to eat. Then we have the papayas that I mentioned, just like the pineapples, are very good for you to eat. And if you're a papaya lover, probably you opened it and you know that it has black seeds inside. And most people just toss them out. Don't do that. They are amazing. They are full of enzymes that will calm your pinch nerve, your backbone aches because of herniated disc and stuff like that. Just put these seeds into the blender or food processor and just liquefy them with a little bit of lime juice and oil, and you have the perfect dressing to base your salads or to just base your meats for a while. It will tenderize your meats actually, okay? And you will have a softer chew when you're eating that piece of meat as well.
Now, look at this stalk. This is the sugar cane stalk. They are like 8 to 10 feet after the front or the leaves have been cut off with a machete. And you see the segments from every two segments. If you plant them on the diagonal, a new sugarcane plant will shoot and emerge. It belongs to the Sucera family. It is a grass, but pretty soon it became a commodity in Europe. Remember, in Europe back in the 16th century, early 16th century, they were just relying on beet sugar. But when they got sugar crystals, they sweeten even more, became a rage in Europe. So what happens? We, in the islands in the Caribbean, we love sugarcane. Why? It was a major industry in the country and all the neighboring islands in the Caribbean as well. It gave a lot of empowerment and enriching, economically speaking as well. Plus, you know what happened? It was in the Caribbean island that the rum production industry began. And let me tell you, you are heaven sent because Puerto Rico is the rum capital of the world. I know that you were at Barrilito. You saw how they make the rum production, but it was in all of the islands of the Caribbean that sugarcane was turned into this beautiful drink called rum. So what happens that I'm proud to tell you that Puerto Rico, being the rum capital of the world, is not by chance. It's because we abide by many rules and regulations to make that rum production go into the rum production. So remember, this is a sugarcane stock, and it was for these plantations and for the fort construction that slavery was brought into our country.
Three main industries were abiding in a country by mid-18th century. One was the coffee production, the sugar cane production, and the tobacco production. And tobaccos were very much used for health reasons because, believe it or not, if you have a horrible migraine, you just get dry tobacco leaves and put them in a wet cloth on your forehead, and that will calm your headache, okay? But people were smoking, gentlemen, basically, tobaccos. And here at this farmer's market, they are very well renowned because they got to roll the longest cigar ever that is in this plastic pipe all around the square. It is 62 and a half feet in length. Imagine that. And it only took them slightly over 2 hours to roll this whole cigar that goes in this acrylic tube all around the square. So it's quite an amazing task that they got to do, okay? So remember that I did mention that we locals come over day or night to have a good time, either at the farmer's market or around it. But all the restaurants that are around, plus all the restaurants within the city, within the capital, they come here to this farmer's market or another that we have like 20 minutes away in Rio Piedras. which is another city within San Juan. They come early on to buy all the produce that they need for their menus that day. Okay, so you are enticing the local producers, plus you are eating fresh produce just the same. Okay, and farmers market evolved in the colonial times as the city was being populated, or the outskirts of the city, the different 78 towns, remember, that we have. Why? Because every 25 miles there had to be a farmer's market. People rely on the feet, as we're doing today as we make this walk. Only the richest persons were having a horse, so they were walking 25 miles like every other day to get the produce that they needed for the family consumption. Okay?
Then we are just ending the tour in Old San Juan. I hope to welcome you soon into our city. And then I'll see you pretty soon. Have a wonderful day and keep enjoying your journey. Thank you.
We hope that you enjoyed this tour through the capital city of San Juan. We can't wait to welcome you all when hopefully soon you can arrive to Puerto Rico. And if you do find yourself in La Factoria, make sure to order La Peligrosa. It has Ron del Barrilito rum in it, so you know that it's amazingly delicious. It's been a pleasure taking you around. Y hasta luego. Bye.